Next up, we move on to another string function called replace. So replace allows us to replace portions of a string with some other replacement string. Now, like all of these functions I've shown you so far, we're not actually updating the data, at least the way that we're using them right now. We're not updating our tables at all. We're simply displaying or selecting information and changing the way that information looks after we remove it or we select it from the database. But our data is completely unchanged. And that's important to note because some people think, the word replace means that we are replacing the contents of our table, that we're actually updating rows. But that's not the case, at least with what I'm showing you right now. So as always, I recommend pull up the docs, find the examples, replace. There you are. It's a pretty simple one. We have to provide 3 different string arguments. The first one is the string that we will be operating on. The second one is what we want to replace. And the third one is what we want to replace it with. So in this example, this is the initial string. This is what we're trying to replace, and we're replacing it with an uppercase W, lowercase w. So instead of www, we now have upper W, lower W, upper W, lower, upper and lower. So let's take a look at an example here. What do you think I end up with when I run this line? Select, replace, hello world, hell, and then 4 characters. Well, remember, this is what we are operating on. This is what we're replacing. So this HELL will be replaced with this last argument. So we get this. Bleep, oh world. Let's run it just to prove it. Over in my shell, I'll paste it in. And there we are. We see bleep, oh world. Okay, now how about this one? Here, I'm on 2 lines just because it was too long. The font was tiny, but there's no reason to do it on 2 lines, really. Replace cheese, bread, coffee, milk. And then what are we trying to replace? A space character. And what are we replacing every space with? Space and space. So essentially, anytime there is a space, it's going to be replaced with space and space, meaning we end up with cheese and bread and coffee and milk. I'll prove that one as well. Paste it in, and there we are. Cheese and bread and coffee and milk. So that's all there is to using replace, at least on its own, right? Without a table, without any real data behind it. It still works the same way, but there's no fancy options. There's no different ways of calling it. You always have to have those 3 values. The initial string, the thing you're trying to replace, and the thing you want to replace it with. So those 3 values must always be there. And another thing you should know is that it is case sensitive. Let's do an example here. Let's select, replace. Whoops, I accidentally hit enter. That's going to be confusing. Let me just terminate this string and clear my screen and start this over. All right, go away. Control L, by the way, will clear the screen. So select, replace. I am Colt. How about that? I'll put an exclamation point there too. And then I want to replace my name. So if I do it this way and I don't capitalize it correctly, and I replace it with, Mr. Steele, like that, we still see I am Colt. It's completely unchanged. Again, the casing matters. If I try and replace C, capital COLT, then it works. I am Mr. Steele. So let's try an example now with our books table. What should we do with our books? Select star from books. We've got these spaces in the names of a lot of the books. Norse mythology, American gods, interpreter of maladies. Why don't we try replacing all spaces with hyphens or dashes? So I'm going to do a select, replace. The title of every book, we want to replace a space. Let me use single quotes. And replace it with a dash. I don't know why we want to do that, but let's say that's what we care about. And I'm an idiot because I didn't say from books. And there we are. The namesake, Norse mythology, right? What we talk about when we talk about love. Great short story collection, by the way. Anyway, lots of spaces replaced with dashes. So that's one example. We can get even fancier. I'm not going to bother with it right now. I'll show some more complicated examples later. But we could do the same thing that we did where we combined concat and substring. We could combine and replace with any of them. I could replace all the spaces with a hyphen and then concatenate. Or we could concatenate the first name and the last name and then replace spaces. Like David Foster Wallace has a space in his last name. But I think I want to keep this moving along. So that's it for replace. Just remember the way that it works. 3 arguments, all of them have to be there. The first one is the piece of text we're operating on. The second one is what we're trying to replace. And the third one is what we want to replace it with. And I can't stress enough, we have not altered anything in our table. If I do a select title from books, nothing has changed. We still have spaces there. We're not updating the table at any point. All that we did was retrieve the titles and replace them once we had retrieved them, replace the spaces with dashes. Okay,